Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all having a great day. And I figured with the two biggest college all-star games for the draft prospects in the East-West Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, which happened last week, I figured I'd do an updated mock draft. Now that now that we've seen some of those guys um practice and a week before the Super Bowl, or less than a week actually. Figured I would do another mock draft. I will have one post Super Bowl the day after, so stay looking out for that. But with the first overall pick, the Raiders, it's a clear and obvious pick, Fernando Mendoza. There is nobody else going number one overall, unless the Raiders um try to bring in somebody else. Like Mendoza's the pick, unless the Raiders are just like bad of an organization and they just you know are not trying to get a quarterback like unlike last year with Cam Ward, where Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter were like probably the two best players in that class coming out. Where it was like, Cam Ward, is he going to go number one overall? And then it was later figure out that Tennessee was going to draft Cam Ward. But this year, there's no Hunter, there's no Abdul Carter, and Mendoza will be the first overall pick no matter what. Second to the Jets. And this is an interesting pick. Most thought it'd be Dante Moore, who obviously returned to school, which I think is an interesting decision because next year, like the QB class, hopefully will be better. And while Dante Moore is my number one guy, just because it feels like the rest of those guys have potential, but Dante, well, hasn't played a lot, was going to be the number two overall pick, but now it's really between do you go Bain, do you go Reese, do you go maybe one of the wide receivers? I think it comes down to what the Jets think is more going to be prioritized, and I think they'd go with Arvell Reese, who I've been seeing mocked a lot to number two, and well, he didn't finish that strong. Like his start was amazing, and he was getting pushed up mocks. He didn't finish that great, but I still think like when he shows up at the combine, he's going to have some of the best measurables, and I think prove that he's worthy of being at least a top five selection, and probably goes either to the Jets or to probably Tennessee at four. At number three, the Cardinals, who just recently hired Mike LaFleur, Matt's younger brother. Clint Kubiak actually mentioned that is reportedly going to be the next Raiders head coach. So now we know every team's head coach. Arizona, I mean, you could say you go like Bain or Bailey, just go best player available. But in a class with not that many elite prospects, I feel like the Cardinals probably would go with a need and a guy I've seen mocked a lot. Even though I like Mario a lot more, I'm trying to predict what's going to happen in April, and it seems like Spencer Fano from Utah right now is the top um, tackle, top arguably top offensive lineman. I like Mario more, but it seems like the Cardinals would go Fano over Malino. Moving on to four, Tennessee. I think this is an easy pick. Ruben Bain. Robert Saleh possibly gets his Nick Bosa um, on Tennessee, and him, Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line could wreak havoc on defenses and give Salah a nice core to build up and allow the offense to use that cap space that they have on the offense, and then try to use these picks on the defense to really help out this team. Possibly go from picking, fourth overall like the Patriots were to possibly competing to make the Super Bowl. At number five, the Giants. You could go with one of the wide receivers. I could see it. Tyson Tate, Lemon, maybe. If you want to get another weapon for Jackson Dart, if Wandale Robinson does leave. But I feel like you got to protect Dart. And you have Andrew Thomas, who's always, since he signed his second contract, has been banged up. Still got to improve the interior offensive line. And Jermaine Illuminor was really good at right tackle, but he's a free agent. And the Giants, I think, could take whoever the Cardinals don't take. This would be Maui Noah and back-to-back Canes actually go, and you protect Dar with your two tackles. Hopefully Thomas stays healthy and Maui Noah lives up to the potential. Because remember the last time the Giants used a first round pick on a tackle, did not work out. But Evan Neal was more so a left tackle that they tried to put at right tackle, and then Maui Noah is not strictly a right tackle because they could put him into guard, but he's played right tackle at Miami, and he would be a perfect fit for this Giants team to really give this team protection for their young rookie quarterback. Moving on to the Browns at 6. I saw Daniel Jeremiah go with David Bailey, which was very interesting because you'd think Cleveland would probably go with one of the wide receivers because they're not a quarterback to take, even though I think they'd probably take a guy on like day 2 or day 3 and maybe bring in like a veteran to compete because you got Shador and Dylan Gabriel who are not like gonna admit, like they're not gonna say, "Oh, you're not gonna take a quarterback," but you do have those guys who the team drafted. Deshaun's gonna be back. Like it's just I don't know if they really need to draft a QB later on, like I've seen people do. But I think you see wide receivers their second biggest need, and they do need to address the offensive line. But with the top two guys off the board, I feel like it's a receiver, and I'm gonna keep the Ohio State guy in the state of Ohio, um, and Carnell Tate. Like I like Jordan Tyson a lot, and if I was a team who needed a wide receiver, I would go Tyson. But his injury concerns, even dating back to when he was at Colorado and now at Arizona State, might push him down the board a lot more. And Tate, who fits the profile of a really like a wide receiver 163, 195, what a lot of teams look at. I just think Tyson's injury history could make him fall down the board. Tate and Lemon could be pushed up the board because of that. Number 7, the Commanders. I think they just need to go best defensive player, which in this case would be David Bailey. It's just they need to get better on that defense. Like they overachieved in 2024, making it to the NFC Championship game, but then Adam Peters kind of thought the team was better than it actually was, and he didn't really try to address their bigger needs, mainly on defense, because like the offense was pretty like it was probably the better unit. The defense overachieved, and I just think this offseason, they just need to bring in a lot of young defensive players to help them out. And that starts at number 7 with David Bailey, who could end up being the best defender, maybe the best defender of this class. It's just Reese and Bane, in my opinion, are better overall players, which is why I have them going ahead of them. At number 8, the Saints. I've been seeing a lot of people say Jeremiah Love, which makes a lot of sense. Alvin Kamara not going to play for a while. I know they drafted Devin Neal and they even brought in Andre Estime, but that doesn't stop you from taking Love. But I just think you got to give Tyler Shuck more weapons. Like they have Olave, Jawan Johnson is a nice tight end, but outside of that, who else do you have? I'm gonna go with Makai Lemon out of USC. You know, a guy who kind of fits the profile of JSN. A smaller guy who might you might think, oh, he's going to have to be in a particular role to play well. We've seen JSN be able to, was a slot guy at Ohio State, but has emerged as probably the best receiver in the league. Him and Puka. Lemon maybe won't be that right, like maybe won't be that impactful, but I think you have Olave. We'll see what the contract extension looks like, but you can give Shuck another weapon and help out this offense even more in the passing game. At number 9, I got the Chiefs. It's going to be the same pick unless they bring in a running back in free agency or trade for one. Jeremiah, it just makes so much sense. Like, yes, they need to help out the offensive line outside of um like they need to help out at with the guard and tackles outside of Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Josh Simmons, who, yeah, Humphrey and Smith are all pro players, and Simmons has the potential. He was arguably the best tackle last year if it wasn't for an injury. But you just got to give, this Chiefs offense a weapon. They bring back Eric Bieniemy, which I think was a phenomenal choice. Because last time he was there, the Chiefs offense was one of the best, despite not having, elite players outside of Travis Kelce in the offensive side for Mahomes. We get Jeremiah Love. It gives Mahomes, who's coming off a torn ACL, it gives him a guy who he can just hand the ball off and Love can just go. And it gives this offense a weapon that they haven't had since Kareem Hunt in 2018. I guess, yeah, Kareem Hunt in 2018. They haven't really had a running back like that. I know Pacheco was good. Love would give them their best running back since Kareem Hunt, maybe even better than Hunt, and would help this offense out a lot. At number 10, Bengals. I think it's best defender. I'm gonna go Caleb Downs. Downs could go a lot higher, but we've seen the safety position, start to we've seen the safety position not be that valuable. Kyle Hamilton, arguably top 5 player, not arguably the top 5 player from his class, fell because safeties are, seen as like a top tier position. Brian Branch coming out was a nickel slash safety, but he fell to the second round because teams didn't value that position, and we've seen how well he's worked out in Detroit. So I think Cincinnati, just like Washington, need to go best defender possible, and Downs can give Al Golden really a Swiss Army knife, a chess piece that he can move around throughout the secondary, even play him, at the line of scrimmage and have him blitzing like we've seen with Kyle Hamilton. Maybe it gives that Bengals defense something they've missed since Jesse Bates left. But on to the Dolphins at 11. Obviously not going to go quarterback. Could go Tyson. You have Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill most likely won't be a Dolphin in 2026 if he does play. And you don't really have many guys outside of that, but I feel like they more so need to address this defense, more so their secondary. And that's what I'm gonna go with Mansour Delane. Jamal McCoy, who is listed ahead of Delane, could easily be the top maybe defensive back to go off the board because of how amazing his 2024 was. It's just we didn't see him in 2025. We saw Delane and maybe at the combine, McCoy it plays him like he's amazing at the combine, and everybody's like, you know what? We should probably just um bump up McCoy and he'll be the top guy. But for now, it seems like Delane is not the clear cut corner one, but he seems like the top guy in the Dolphins team that needs to help out that secondary. You have Minka Fitzpatrick and a bunch of other guys. You need to help out that secondary. And Jeff Affley coming over from the Packers, knowing, you need to have a good secondary to help out that pass rush. He's going to want to help that out. Cowboys at 12, Sonny Styles for me. I mean, I think they just need to go defense, at least in the first round. Like, you need to help out that defense. We'll see what happens with Pickens and whether he is back or not, but you need to help out that defense that was one of the worst in the league. And Sonny Styles, probably the best pure linebacker because Reese is more so like a Jalen Walker, Micah Parsons coming out where he is more so a guy who is transitioning to be an edge, but you still probably put him at linebacker, at least for his rookie year, like we saw with Walker and like we saw with Parsons. So Styles is probably the best true linebacker. And look, yes, they traded for Logan Wilson and they drafted Shamar James, and but that's not gonna it's not gonna stop you from drafting a first round linebacker to help out this defense. At number 13, the Rams, obviously not gonna be quarterback. This could be Jordan Tyson. Devontae Adams, 1 year left on that contract because it was only a 2 year deal. And maybe you bring in Tyson and you say, hey, this guy, yeah, you could say this guy can be our, Robin to Puka's Batman, and whoever that long term quarterback is, will have two elite weapons to throw to. And the Rams, consistently get great production out of guys on rookie contracts. Um, you know, this could be a tackle if one of those guys fell, but they didn't. I'm gonna go with McCoy. This is a guy who probably goes top 10, maybe even top five in this class if he plays. That's how talented he is. And a Rams team that needs defensive back help. Yes, their secondary has, been pretty good for the most part, but they don't really have any like elite players. Like they have some decent guys out there, but they don't have any elite guys like McCoy can be, and he can give this Rams defense, elite shutdown corner like they had with Jalen Ramsey for a couple of years, and really fortify this defense that it showed, this year at times can be great, but also at times can, you know, be giving up a lot of points and needing the offense to help them out. At 14, the Ravens. This is kind of between either yeah, Olana Veneno or Peter Woods. And I'm gonna go with Penn State guy, Olana Veneno. And, you know, reportedly, you know, this Ravens team needs to help out that interior offensive line. Tyler Linderbaum, I think, should be back, or they're at least going to tag him probably, and then try to work out an extension. And you hopefully have the tackles, Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten, but they need help on that guard position. And it was also revealed that Dominic Madubuike tweeted out, saying good news on January 30th. Now, he didn't say anything after that, but it could be a sign that he will be back for 2026, and that would leave me not going Peter Woods and or even Caleb Banks to replace him. Moving on to 15, the Bucks. I mean, this could be a Kenyon Sadiq team, who I think could go a lot higher than he's been mocked. You know, K-Don, free agent, might just want to replace him, you know, and just give him another weapon. But I feel like they have to go defense. Like they've been bringing in all these weapons. You know, they went in Buka last year. I feel like they need to help out this defense, and I'm gonna go with Keldrick Falk from Auburn. You know, a guy who really talented and Bucks team that needs help on the edge. Like, yeah, they have Yaya Diaby. They had Hassan Reddick. I think he's gonna be free agent again. They have, you know, plenty of guys and hopefully healthy Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea help out in the interior, but you gotta get help on the edge, and Falk can be a phenomenal help to that defense and really help them out. And at 16, the Jets, obviously we went with Arvell Reese. And I'm gonna go Jordan Tyson here. He can go a lot higher than this. I think this is maybe the ceiling, or this is probably the floor of how far he goes. Maybe he, you know, falls further because of those injury concerns. But the Jets could get a guy, you know, whether it's him, whether it's McCoy, like if these guys fall because of injury concerns, Jets could be able to pick up a guy who probably would have been a top 10, top five pick if not for these injury concerns. And I think the Jets could get a steal here and help out whoever that long term quarterback will be. At 17, the Lions, you know, I think you could go offensive line. Maybe you put one of these tackles at guard. You can go Avion Terrell, AJ Terrell's younger brother. But they have needed help on the edge for a while. Like Aiden Hutchinson has been amazing, but they don't really have anybody else. And I feel like this Lions team, you know, will need some help. But I'm actually gonna go with Avion Terrell. You know, I mean I could see edge rusher, but I don't know if those guys are gonna go this high. And a Lions team that you have DJ Reed, who, you know, really productive. Have obviously the safety duo of Branch and Joseph, but Terry Arnold has not really worked out as a first round corner. Like as much as people hoped he would, he just has not. And then there's the injury concerns and a Lions team that needs to help out this defense, be more solidified. I feel like Avion Terrell could really help out this secondary and give it a boost that they really need. What about the Vikings? Yeah, this is an interesting pick because usually I have gone corner, but I don't know if there's a corner. I mean, you could say, um, there is a guy like Colt Hood, Brandon Cisse, who, you know, could go here, but I'm in a different spot. I'm gonna look at safety. You know, I see a lot of people have multiple safeties go in the first round, and you know, we saw last year Nicky Memori got a lot of hype. You know, Malachi Starks was kind of that guy, like Caleb Downs. Downs was a better prospect than Starks. Um, but we saw a lot of hype for Eamon Mori, and we could see another guy. And I feel like the Vikings, who, you know, need some help on this defensive side, could go with them. Emmanuel McNeil, Warren from Toledo, Dylan Beeman, maybe AJ Hossie. But I'm actually going to go with Peter Woods. the Clemson D tackle, who could go a lot higher than this. Um, but the down season in 2025 still can be really good, and it seems like they're going to move on from either Javon Hargrave or Jonathan Allen. And while they have guys like Jalen Redmond and others, Woods would be an immediate impact player on that defensive line and really give this whole defensive line a boost. Like they have the edges. Dallas Turner kind of showed out later in his rookie year. You have Jonathan Grenard and um, Andrew Van Ginkel, but getting a guy in to plug the middle of the Peter Woods would I think be a phenomenal pick for a Vikings team that does need to help out in the interior. For the Panthers, this could be corner. Cisse, Abney, Hood, one of these guys, because outside of J.C. Horn, there's not much there. Like they have guys Mike Jackson and others, but they're not that great. You could go Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion to give this team another weapon, but I mean, linebacker actually. I feel like they do need to improve that. And there's a couple guys. I'm gonna go with C.J. Allen from Georgia, who follows a long line of great Georgia linebackers, and I feel like Carolina overachieved this year, but you gotta make sure that you improve in some of the weaknesses you have, and improving that linebacker position to give them that middle guy that can affect play really can be a factor. And a lot of people remember when Jack Campbell went in the first round. Not a lot of people thought he would. The Lions took him, and they've obviously loved the pick. I feel like Carolina would love this too. Not to the Cowboys. Um, I think you stay on the defensive side with whoever your pick. I don't think they don't have a defensive tackle. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with T.J. Parker from Clemson, helping out that edge. Yeah, you go Sonny Styles with the first pick, and then you bring in Parker, who can be a menace off the edge. He had a really good Senior Bowl week, and really, kind of showed out and showed that potential that a lot of people know he has. And a Cowboys team that needs to help out this defense, needs to make improvements, get a huge impact player in Parker. Put on to the Steelers at 21. I mean, a lot of people could say quarterback, but I still don't think there's another QB really worthy of a first round pick. Like, no offense to Ty Simpson. If Trinidad Shameless does come out, Garrett Nussmeier, and Nuss actually had a pretty good Senior Bowl, but those guys aren't really that great. Like, they're going to be pushed up because QB is the most valuable position, and that we might see a team like the Giants last year with Jackson Dart try to trade up into like a similar range to um get a Simpson, Nussmeier, if Chambliss does the because he was denied it next year, but then he resued. So whatever happens in the court, will decide whether Chambliss is a draftable player or if he is returning. But I'm gonna go with Denzel Boston. They need to help out this receiving core. You have DK Metcalf, who very much was disappointing, especially after Pittsburgh gave him that huge extension. But you got to help him out. You don't really have much outside of him. Like they've drafted some guys, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, to name a few. But Denzel Wilson can give the Steelers team, a elite target to whoever that quarterback is going to be, and really help out this Steelers team to, maybe try and compete later in the playoffs. Moving on to the Chargers, you know, this is probably where I've had Uvega Uwanu go a lot, but he's off the board. You could say Emmanuel Pregnon, Chase Basantis, but I think they would probably push one of these guys to guard, and I think it'd be Caden Proctor. You know, Proctor, he flashed the talent. And look, I know Proctor, you might say, is he Makai Becton 2.0, where he's not going to work out at tackle, you try to put him at guard, and he maybe works out. But I feel like the Chargers need to improve this interior offensive line. Hopefully, with a healthy Alt and maybe with a healthy Rashawn Slater, you help out that interior offensive line, and Proctor truly could, work out as a guard, as a highlight guard, so people know. Around 223 with the Eagles. My tight end is there. Like Dallas Goddard, I know he's been there for a long time, but he's clearly impactful. I mean, this could be another, tackle to guard thing, but I don't think so. I think they go help out this interior with Caleb Banks. You have Jalen Carter, who went on the field, is a game wrecker. And he was injured this past year, and some other things happened. But went on the field, he's really good. And Jordan Davis had his breakout season, but I don't know if Philly wants to pay him what he might want. And, they picked up his 5th-year option 2 years ago, right? Or no, last. um, but they picked up his 5th-year option last year. So he will be an Eagle for this year, but if they don't want to pay him, they can just bring in Caleb Banks, who had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. Guy who barely played in 2025 because of injuries, but really made an impact at the Senior Bowl and the practices and the game. And Philly really could help out this interior defensive line if they don't want to pay Jordan Davis and help him out. 24th, the Browns obviously went Cardinal Tate to keep him in the state of Ohio. This time, you know, see, I mean, they could go Casey Concepcion. I mean, they could go plenty of different options, but I'm gonna go with Caleb Lomu. Help out that, um, help out that offensive line, get it, to be better. They have a lot of older guys who might retire soon and are very injury prone. Even Dewan Jones is very injury prone, so um, they need to help out that offensive line, and Lomu could be a phenomenal fit for a Browns um, offense that truly, if they have the right pieces, could work out. Go to the Bears. Yeah, I think you gotta go Kaden McDonald right there. I mean, this could be, this could be a safety team because they have a lot of free agents at the safety position. This could also be um, an Anthony Hill, but Caden McDonald to beef up that interior. I know they brought in Grady Jarrett, but Jarrett's Jarrett's not that young, and um, you're gonna eventually have to find a replacement. And McDonald would be the perfect replacement to help out that interior and give this defense a boost that they really need. Buffalo at 26. This could be Casey Concepcion, Cassius Howe, Christian Miller. Could be a lot of different things. I think I'm going to go with Casey Concepcion. I just think they need to bring in more weapons for Josh Allen. Like, You have Khalil Shakir, he's a slot guy. You have Keanu Coleman, who the owner hates. Um, you have Josh Palmer and a bunch of other guys, but they don't have another like true game changing player. They rely on Knox and Kincaid, who are all right, but you don't have a game changer down the field, and Concepcion can give you that and really help out this Bills offense and make it one of the best units in the league. But on the 27 with the Niners, I mean, this could also be a wide receiver because Brandon Ayuk's definitely gone. Jawan Jennings probably is going. You got Ricky Pearsall and who else? But I don't know if there's many guys available to be first round picks. Like Chris Bell tore his ACL, so do you really draft a guy who tore his ACL and probably won't probably wouldn't be ready until like late training camp, like closer to the season? Maybe even miss the first couple of games. Um, so I think this could be a Kenyon City team because George Kittle tears ACL. I'm actually going to do that. Let's say Sadiq. You know, George Kittle tears his ACL, will most likely miss at least the beginning of next season. He's also not getting any younger, and you have Ricky Pearsall and not much out. You bring in Sadiq, who kind of like a wide receiver in a tight end's body, but it would be a great player in this Kyle Shanahan system. We give Brock Purdy another weapon for the long term. The Texans, yeah, you really wish there was. I'm joking. I'm gonna say you really wish there was another running back in this class. I think Woody Marks played decent enough, and you're maybe getting Joe Mixon back. Running back, I don't think should be a position of concern. But I think they need to help out this offensive line. Go Monroe, Freeling, a guy who's been pushed up. Really, I'm guessing because of his great playoffs with Georgia and a Houston offense that if CJ Stroud can play well when he has a good offensive line. It's just Houston's neglected the position for the entire time he's been there. And if they just invest into the offensive line like they did with Ariante or Suri, I know they have Blake Fisher, but he doesn't seem to be a long term guy anymore, even though they drafted him 2 years ago. I just think a Houston team that needs to help out this offensive line and give it some real boost. 29, the Rams. This could be with Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier go. I'm not going to have it. I'm going to have them go with Blake Miller out of Clemson. Offensive line isn't the biggest need, but you always need extra bodies out there. And I know you're going to be saying, why would you draft, a sixth offensive lineman in the first round? Look at, the Chargers with Rashawn Slater. They drafted him in the first round to be the blindside protector for Justin Herbert. He's he missed all of 2025. He missed all but 3 games in 2022. He's only played like two. He's only played I think like 3 of his 5 years full. And I think the Chargers would wish that they had drafted another offensive lineman. So if he went down and they moved Alt over, they could have had another guy on the other side. So it just makes sense to address the offensive line, especially with an older quarterback like Matthew Stafford being there. Broncos at 29, 30. This has usually been Kenny Sadiq, but I'm gonna go defensive tackle with Lee Hunter, who was a big Senior Bowl riser, a guy who I didn't really know much about, and then he kind of rose up draft boards, and he had an amazing week. And a Denver team that could lose John Franklin Myers to free agency is going to need to replace him. Lee Hunter, I think, could be the perfect replacement. 31st, Pats and their Cassius Howell. I know I've had him going a lot earlier than this, but these mock drafts now are more so me trying to predict what's going to happen. The earlier ones were more so just introducing the prospects and getting to know them. And Howell's arms are not the longest. Apparently, no player's ever been a Pro Bowler or an All Pro with his arms, and that could be an issue. Which is why I'm going down here. But Caleb Von Chason going to be a free agent and could price him out of New England after him. Yeah, and Harold Landry, but you don't have much else. And if New England wants to continue to compete for championships, they got to get these picks right. And Howell would be a phenomenal pick. And then finally, Seattle. I'm going to go Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina to finish it up. You get Tariq Woolen, free agent, and leave. Josh Jobe is a free agent. Like, they have so many corners that are going to be free agents. They might not be able to pay all of them, especially with Kenneth Walker being a free agent. So they're going to need to pay certain people, and that'll leave other options available. And Cisse, a phenomenal pick here at 32. But that'll do it for today's video. Hope you guys like it. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment, other videos. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. But until then, see y'all and bye.